Hello and welcome to the next Thematic List Build. Before we get started, I want to give a big thanks to this community for helping my channel grow. The recent boost to subscribers has been nothing short of amazing, truly a beacon of hope in the grim darkness. So thank you for the support, I appreciate it immensely, and it's only bolstered my drive to give and provide more content to this channel. With that in mind, I figured before the release of the next subfaction ranking video, I would give some love to the Iron 10th. So let's dive into a thematic list build for the Iron Hands. For those new, the goal of the Thematic List Build series is to create a 2K Strike Force sized list based around a theme central to the focused faction. And with that stated, let's take a look at the subfaction rules. The Iron Hands chapter tactic, The Flesh is Weak, has taken a hit in its transition to 9th edition. They maintain their 6-up shrug to ignore wounds, and doubling their wounds for the purpose of stat determination, but they have lost their overwatch on a 5-up. But to be honest, I think that's totally fair. In its previous incarnation, it was providing 3 perks where everyone else's chapter tactic was providing 2. And also, when you think about it, it's not even that bad. Since in 9th edition, Overwatch is a stratagem, which limits the interaction to a single unit once per charge phase. And even still, the Iron Hands can pay an additional command point to Overwatch on a 4-up. Their Doctrine bonus has received no FAQ alterations, allowing units in the Devastator Doctrine to ignore the move and shoot penalties, and enabling them to reroll ones to hit for heavy weapons, which in isolation are great perks for increasing and maintaining efficiency with heavy type weapons. Worthy of note though is that in this transition to 9th edition it has become less powerful, as before 9th, when this mechanic was provided, it was a huge boon to vehicles, which now across the board effectively claim no benefit from half of this perk. Call me crazy, but I like when army-wide abilities are available to thematically suitable units. Might have been a good place to FAQ in something like, vehicles with this ability can ignore the first -1 hit modifier, but it is what it is. In any case, their army-wide rules are quite thematic for the cold and calculating Iron Hands, increasing their proficiency with the most deadly of ranged weapons, while being considerably resilient across the board, and allowing their vehicles to maintain efficiency better than their contemporaries. When it comes to the thematic objectives of the list, they are demonstrating the resilient, strong performing might of the Iron Hands war machines, flexing grav weapons, which I know aren't overtly proclaimed to be their thing the way flame weapons are for the salamanders, but due to their close relationship with the Mechanicum, I can't help but associate the Iron Hands as a Forge chapter with a proclivity for high-tech weaponry. And creating a list that is ruthlessly efficient, which sounds like it's going to be a list designed for tournament play, but I mean this thematically. As in, the list will be cold and calculating in its implementation. Now, let's go over to the list breakdown. The list is organized into a patrol and spearhead, as it needs the extra heavy support slots. So we are down 3 command points to start, which is a bummer, but we gotta work with what we got. And I suppose it makes sense to start with the units which comprise that cold brutality mentioned in the thematic goals. To start, it's a drop pod, taken with a Stormbolter. Inside the drop pod will be a Devastator squad, loaded with grav cannons and an Armorium Cherub. You can probably see where I'm going with this. I think grav cannons remain pretty great in 9th edition. But for the Iron Hands, a group of Grav Devastators arriving in turn 1 will have an initial 20 shots thanks to the Cherub, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to Calculated Fury, with 8 of those shots hitting on 2s thanks to the Devastator Sergeant's Signum. Those attacks are at strength 5, AP-4 in the Devastator Doctrine, dealing 1 damage or 2 if the target save is greater than 3+. Feels quite appropriate for the Iron Hands to punish enemies for bringing tough armor. Accompanying the Devastators in a drop pod is a Lieutenant, taken with a Combi Grav and Chainsword, mostly for points reasons, but it also makes him feel pretty suitable as a sort of Grav Devastator Lieutenant. He has been given the relic, the Tempered Helm, which will help him regain some command points over the course of the battle. His presence brings with it the Tactical Precision Aura, allowing the Devastators to reroll hit rolls of 1. And with the aim of maximizing efficiency, now is probably a good time to point out the Iron Hands have a rather ruthless stratagem, suitably named Mercy is Weakness. Costing 1 command point and available to any Iron Hands unit, it forces the unit to put all of their attacks into a single target, but lets wound rolls of 6 count as 2 wounds instead of 1. And to add more punishment, accompanying the Devastators is a Company Ancient, whose Astartes banner can potentially let those Devastators shoot again before they are removed from play. That is, unless your opponent aims to take them down or tie them up in combat. If such a scenario occurs, you have the option to enact optimal repulsion doctrines on your Overwatch, granting that Overwatch to hit on a 4-up instead of just on 6s. All said, this Devastator squad is absolutely nasty versus Marine equivalents, and serves just as well against Horde infantry still denying their armor saves. And in a pinch, it's got the rate of fire to take a few wounds off enemy armor as well. I think it's ruthlessly pragmatic and a very logical choice for the Iron Hands, which is why there is a duplicate Grav Devastator squad and drop pod. Having these two nodes will allow them to be split up, providing fire support or board control as needed. However, if necessity demands, they can be brought down near each other to leverage more buffs from the supporting Lieutenant and Ancient. Filling out the troops slot of the list is a 5-man tactical squad. They are taken totally vanilla and will be occupying the second Devastator squad's drop pod. Serving as the Warlord is Iron Father Malkan Pharaos. He has a pretty great kit, all things considered. His Warlord trait, while not flashy, provides some good flexibility if it comes into effect, allowing him to consolidate away from combat after fighting. And with 6 inches of range on that consolidation move, enemies will likely not be able to fight against him. His unique heavy bolter provides it an extra point of AP, and in combat he has 6 attacks on the charge at strength 7, AP 2, dealing 2 damage, 2 of which can be made with his servo arms, effectively resolving like Thunderhammers without the -1 to hit, which isn't too shabby. Ability-wise, his Rites of Tempering gives all infantry within 6 inches a 5-up invulnerable save, and his Bionics give him a 5-up shrug over the army-wide's 6-up shrug provided by the Flesh is Weak chapter tactic. But more importantly, it's his supportive elements I want to focus on for the purpose of this list build. His Signum Array has been changed in the 9th edition FAQ, no longer granting a unit a fixed ballistic skill of 2+. It is now used in the command phase, granting a unit a +1 to hit, and his Blessing of the Omnissiah ability repairs a consistent 3 wounds, since he is a Master of the Forge, which can be used to great effect with the Iron Hand stratagem Machine Empathy, which allows him to repair twice per turn. Granted, you have to repair 2 different units, but it'll be great to have when you need it. To claim the benefits of this Forge Master, I have decided to include a Forge World Leviathan Dreadnought. Nani? I never gave my consensus on the new Forge World book, so here's my broad assessment. By and large, units with rules that were both illogically poor and egregiously potent were brought in line, and then any exemplary units were basically dropped down a tier or so. With that performance decrease, so too came a points decrease, which I can digest well enough. However, I can't say the same for the Martial Legacy tax, as it absolutely sucks for people who enjoyed using multiple Forge World models. That being said, for a one-off potent pick, the Leviathan isn't bad. It no longer hits on 2s, but still can thanks to Iron Father Pharaos. It doesn't have the core keyword, but it can still reroll 1s to hit with Calculated Fury. On the positive side of things, it has gained Duty Eternal, which would have been 1 command point spent per turn in the old system of 8th edition. This one comes in at 245 points, loaded up with twin Volkite Calivers, 2 Grav Flux Bombards, and 3 Hunter Killer Missiles. And it marks the last Grav unit of the list. But notably, the Grav Flux Bombard is a 2d3 Grav weapon at strength 8, which has a base damage of 2 going up to 3 on targets with a 3-up save. And 2d3 means minimum 2 shots, max 6, which I quite like. And since it's in the list, I've decided to tool it up the best way the Iron Hands can, by spending an additional 2 command points for March of the Ancients to make this Leviathan a character, and Hero of the Chapter to give it an extra Warlord trait. I have gone for Merciless Logic, which allows unmodified 6s to hit to grant an additional attack with the same weapon, which just so happens to work really well with the Wrathful Machine Spirit stratagem, letting the Leviathan reroll all failed hits, which makes for another quite efficient combo. Now we enter the armored column. Taking up 3 heavy support slots are 3 Vindicator tanks, with one of them equipped with a Hunter Killer Missile. While the Demolisher Cannon is quite swingy as a d6 shot, d6 damage blast weapon, it is strength 10 with -3 AP, and with 3 of them in the list, its swinginess shouldn't be felt too sorely. And beyond their offensive output, each of them provide 11 wounds at toughness 8, and their siege shields effectively giving them a 2-up armor save, which is pretty good for the points spent. The last 2 armored units of the list are 2 Gladiator Reapers. Visually, it's my favorite of the Gladiator variants, and it's one of the better dedicated anti-infantry tanks available to the Adeptus Astartes, capable of dealing a staggering 32 shots at its max range between its heavy onslaught Gatling cannons and 2 Tempest bolters. And defensively, the Gladiator chassis is toughness 8, which is a nice boon in its favor. Use the 2 Gladiators to screen your Vindicators on the charge lanes of the battlefield, as the Gladiators are far better off as charge recipients. This is because the Gladiator Reaper has the means to shoot itself out of combat if it's tagged by a non-threatening target. And secondly, the Gladiator having the repulsor field keyword means it can use the Grav Pulse stratagem to either reduce enemy charge rolls or fall back and shoot. And with the goal of providing more support for all that armor is a Primaris Tech Marine. He has been given the Adept of the Omnissiah trait for an additional command point, meaning he can repair D3+1 wounds, and the Ironstone as an additional relic, which allows him to give a vehicle nearby the ability to reduce its damage suffered by 1. And as a 9th edition Tech Marine, he has the means of giving a nearby vehicle +1 to hit with ranged attacks. And that's the list, coming in at a satisfying 2,000 points. After spending some CP for the detachment tax and upgrading the characters and the Leviathan Dread, it provides a total of 4 command points to start. But all that spending has afforded the list some really ruthless grav weaponry, and a massive armored column of 57 wounds behind toughness 8, not counting the Leviathan Dread, all of which as Iron Hands are especially resilient, reliable, and efficient. So prepare the launch bays and make way for war, and remember the wisdom of the Primarch.
Rest? We were not made to rest. We go on, unflinching, unstoppable, unending in our strength. The Emperor did not make us for such mortal concerns as hearth and home, vanity or contemplation. We are his engines of war, his hammers, beating out the fabric of existence into a vessel fit for mankind to inhabit.
Well, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informative. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, please feel free to drop them down below. And if you are an Iron Hands player, I would be curious to know how you are feeling with the current 9th edition codex. So, if you enjoyed this video, there is a like button. And if you want to help this channel grow, there is a subscribe button. There is also a bell button and a share button, so press the buttons you want to press. Thanks again for watching, and I'll hope to see you guys in the next one.